Some more DJI news, but more closely related to the FPV world. And it pertains heavily to the future of the current DJI FPV system, which a lot of people are very heavily invested in. And the first piece of news, and this was, excuse me, this was such a big piece of news that I recorded a little release about it from my hotel room, is that DJI fired Caddx.
Yes.
And I just want to say, when Caddx, when Walksnail, who is definitely not Caddx, came out with this competing system, I reached out to my contact at Caddx and was like, do you anticipate that this will create any issues in your relationship with DJI? And they were like, no, DJI and Caddx have good relationship. We continue to be partners for win-win or whatever. I'm sorry, that's not a direct quote. I'm just making fun of sort of Chinese sales speak. And I was like, oh, okay, well, good for you. Good for you. And then like this news came out, DJI was like, hey, Caddx, you think you could get away with this? You're fired. I was like, I thought that might happen.
Yeah, so we should clarify. We've got a statement by Caddx. DJI didn't publicly fire them, but Caddx said they were fired by DJI, essentially.
Let's show the statement, because we should. Yeah, that's responsible. This is the statement from Caddx. I'm not going to read the whole thing.
Yeah, they said DJI decided to stop cooperating with us. That's essentially the idea there. So yeah, so basically they've got a bunch of stuff still in stock, but obviously they aren't going to be able to sell anything from DJI anymore in the future once they run out of stock. It sounds like they will be selling cameras as long as they can, but that's kind of up in the air. Yeah, and then moving forward, yeah, they'll just be supplying stuff from Walksnail, and they hope you follow them to Walksnail, essentially is the statement.
And I think this is a really clever way of framing this as sort of a positive. It says, I'm sorry. I've just put hot sauce in my eyeball.
Oh, no. That's no good.
Pause that for a second. I was like, oh, I can ride this out. And then I was like, no, I can't. I'm making some hot pickles. I bought a big jar of pickles, and I just took a whole bottle of like ghost pepper hot sauce and poured it in there.
Well,
and apparently I still
only
had some on my finger.
Yeah.
Hold on, this is going to pass. If my eye is super red, you'll know why. Oh my God. Cool. Let's see what we could do. We can continue this. Caddx is really keeping it positive because they say, you know, the exclusive agreement ended and now we're all branching out, going our separate ways. Isn't this great? And okay.
There is a very positive way to spin a separation of two companies.
Yes. I mean, that's cool. That's good to keep it positive, especially when you've got a 500-pound gorilla like DJI out there. Maybe it's better not to throw too much mud in their eye and be like, nah, we're all still friends, aren't we, guys?
Hot sauce in their eye. Yeah.
Hot sauce, yeah. Caddx did say that they said one of the reasons that they're happy to be doing this is that they can deliver things like Betaflight, MSP, DisplayPort, OSD, and so forth, things that DJI was slow to do or reluctant to do. And so Caddx is trying to spin this as, look, guys, DJI, we're going to do the things that DJI wouldn't do. That's why we made the Walksnail system. Other people are looking at this and going, Caddx, you effed up a good thing, Caddx. DJI was making a good product, a product that we like, and now what are we going to do?
So the thing is, it depends on if their narrative is correct. If their narrative becomes true, if we find out that the narrative that they said that they are not going to be allowed to supply cameras for the new system, and nobody is, right? If that's a correct narrative, because that's what they're claiming, then to me, that's a little more valid. Because they knew that they weren't going to have a future in the DJI system with O3. So their thought was, hey, this is only fair for us to get out, and we'll stay until we get kicked out, and then we'll just roll with the new system, right? If you're in Caddx's position, I think that makes perfect sense if that's true. If we find out in a year that Runcam was not allowed to make cameras for the new system, there's just one DJI camera or two DJI cameras, and that's how it works. And I got to say that, and Runcam doesn't sell the air units or something, like all that kind of points to Caddx, like sort of making sense, at least, right?
That was my take. Now I will say that one of the things that I believe that may be wrong, and I want to call this out. I believe that DJI, when DJI first released the DJI FPV system, I thought to myself, these days are numbered, because DJI has an incentive to keep their product cycle going. So the Phantom gets phased out, the Phantom 2, the Phantom line goes away, the Mavic line comes. And they can't do it too quickly, or they'll just piss off their customers. But look at Immersion RC. They still make Tramp, actually they stopped recently, I think now but they made Tramp video transmitters for years and years and years and years and years, because they invested in that customer base. And that's what you see from a lot of RC companies. Look at FreeSky radios, right? But DJI just doesn't have that business model. So when it came out, I thought, how long do we have? Do we have 2 years, 3 years, 4 years? When is it going to end? And when we started hearing about the O3 system, then I thought, okay, this is it. It's coming to an end. The Vistas and the air units are going away. And I don't know that. That's not based on any information. I just felt it to be true. When I released that video, a couple of people came out and they said, look, my guy at DJI said, no, that's not true. DJI will not screw over the FPV market. And I thought, well, maybe that is or isn't true. But then I heard from a couple other people who were like, no, man, it's going away. And I don't know who's right.
Right.
But your take on this choice by Caddx to make the walk snail system and essentially stab DJI in the back, how that looks in the future will bear a lot on how long the V2, the Vista, and the air unit stay around, I think.
Yeah, basically what support DJI shows us in all aspects. Yeah. I mean, I got to be honest, even if all they could do was sell the old DJI stuff, I probably would, as Caddx, would have rather just switched to the new system, bailed, and got in bed with that shirt.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like you want the new system. Like if you can't sell the new system with new hardware and you can't help develop for it, or at least you can't be the main vendor for it, I think there is a large incentive to move to something else and move away from that partnership. So,
and as a person who runs my own business in a way, if I had the option to work for somebody else, let's say I was offered the option to make money by reading other people's scripts, but I'm on somebody else's channel, I'm not on my own channel, I'm just hosting their channel, they're writing the scripts and they have editorial control, and I'm just the face on camera, and I make more money than I make now. I'm not interested. Like, right. You want to be in charge of your own destiny. And I absolutely can see Caddx going, look, we have this opportunity to make this system, and we're going to try and make it the best system we can and control our own destiny. The good news for people who still use the V2 system is that Runcam is going to save us, right?
Yes. So at least from what we have so far, obviously we know Runcam for what we know them for, but they have been selling Runcam links for a while, the DJI Link, which is basically the same Vista.
It's just the same.
It's called the Link. DJI calls it the Air Unit Lite. Caddx calls it the Vista. Runcam calls it the Link. So yeah, we've still got links from Runcam, and so we did get a couple statements from Runcam. So yeah, we got basically yes, they're still keeping the partnership, and they put out another large statement, which I don't know that I pulled the right one. Let me check.
Let's see if this is the right one.
Yes, I did. Yes. So basically, they put out an official statement yesterday that was like, hey, listen, we're not discontinuing the link. We're going to continue providing VTX links with the following cameras. So they've got their cameras listed out. They've even got that split link kit, which is the thing that they offered before, which is that, you know, it adds the latency, but it does the extra recording. So it seems like all the products are still going to be available from them. And yeah, they do have a 120 FPS camera. It sounds like Caddx still will for a while as well. Yeah. And I think they'll be trying to support that as long as they can. So from what we know, we'll be able to get those for a while.
Ohmed Out asks, the Runcam will pair with DJI V2 goggles currently. Yeah, because Ohmed Out, the Runcam Link, the Caddx Vista, the DJI Air Unit, they're all made by DJI. They are not made by Caddx or Runcam. It's a front. And if you needed proof, and there's never been proof of that until basically now, where Runcam says they are the same. And in fact, Runcam says they'll even honor warranty and service requests for Caddx Vistas because they're all the same. The cameras are not the same. The Runcam Falcon camera is made by Runcam. The Caddx Nebula Pro camera is made by Caddx, but the VTXs are made by DJI, and they're all the same, and they're all cross-compatible.
Yes.
So the problem with this, and here's the problem with this, Plenty. Caddx is like, well, DJI, and we're no longer working with DJI. And Runcam is like, don't worry, we will save you. That's cool, but Runcam is still 100% at DJI's mercy here.
Sure.
And Runcam is saying, don't worry, the relationship will continue. Well, that's just what Caddx was saying 3 months ago. Didn't work out that way.
Yeah, very true.
And so
but
we
also,
don't know.
Runcam did not make a competing digital system.
Well, sure.
Yes.
So what we don't know, what we can't know in this moment is when DJI will say, we're not interested in making the Vista, or, you know, we're going to have to stop calling it the Vista, won't we?
Yeah.
We're not interested in making this product anymore. And, you know, I guess I'm just always afraid that that shoe is going to drop. And so, you know, I'm like, oh, here, this is it. It's coming. DJI says, I hear no official statements, but, well, I don't want to say anything about which direction it came from because I don't want to give away the source even implicitly. But someone said, well, my guy I talked to at DJI, someone in the industry who has professional contacts with DJI said that they said, no, don't worry, we're going to keep making them. Then somebody else said, no, they're going to stop making them once the O3 gets established. So I don't know who to believe. But there's one thing I do know, and that's that Runcam is not in charge of this decision unless Runcam makes a competing project and pisses them off.
Yes. Also, we don't know if Runcam's going to sell air units, how that will work out. However, I did dig up a link. Somebody dug up a link for me. We have in the show notes here. DJI is still selling standalone air units on their website.
That's
so
true.
You can still buy in stock standalone DJI air units on their website and add your own camera if you're still trying to get one. So hopefully that will continue. It does seem like they're at least still producing.
Yeah. MC's Creations points out they still make the NASA Lite. So people have done this. People have said this plenty. Let's spend just a couple more minutes on this topic because I think it's interesting. People say, well, DJI still makes parts for their older stuff. Well, that's true, but that's parts for an old thing. So that's a little different. Does DJI still make the Phantom 1? Can you still buy a Phantom 1? Or a Phantom 3 or whatever? I mean...
I don't know. You can't buy a DJI Light Bridge, right?
Can you? That was the example the commenter made. They said, you can still get spare parts for a DJI Light Bridge. I'm like, well, spare parts for something is different than still being able to buy, like, a new product. And I'm not sure if the light...
Actually, Drone Nerds has a Light Bridge to ground you to... on back order. I wonder if that means they can order?
So I would be interested to hear more about that because, yes, DJI has the resources to continue to support old products for customers who purchase the product, which is something that smaller companies really can't do. But when DJI brings in the Mavic, are they still selling Phantoms? And so the question, I guess, would be, how much is the O3 system seen as a sort of a generational change that phases out the old one?
Yeah, I think we're going to see a big difference in that because especially if DJI doesn't provide any new camera. Like, I can't tell if we want to go back to that leak picture. Maybe it's the bottom picture in that Imager album of the air unit. Okay. You know, I can't tell how big that camera is for the life of me. It's in white space. It's all the way at the bottom.
Yeah.
So it's in white space, right? So that could be 28 millimeter. That could be 32 millimeter. That could be 20 millimeter. It's hard for me to tell exactly how big that is.
Yeah.
And so the question is, if that's like a 28, God forbid, like you're going to see, I think you'll see a huge separation. You'll see all these pilots that still want to run nano cameras, micro cameras, that have frames that don't fit anything like this. I mean, there's a whole generation of parts that were built for cameras that are not that big. If that happens to be like the OG DJI air unit size, maybe there's like a squeeze in because people are still using those OG air unit cameras. There's still some, you can still squeeze carbon plates and stuff and fit them. I don't expect that to be 19. It doesn't look anything like 19 millimeters. So well, I think that's going to be that might be like a generational gap for us, right? Like I can see a lot of people staying on old systems just because of reasons like that, and compatibility with V1 goggles and things like that too.
We should also say that there's something unique about the DJI FPV systems, which is that there are a lot of third-party companies that rely the iFlight, the GEP-RC. If DJI were to pull the rug on that system, all of these other companies would be screwed. And that's something that doesn't exist for any other DJI product in exactly that way. So who knows? Hopefully DJI keeps, I mean, for the people, like, this is still what I have in most of my quads. And if the rug got pulled, I'd be sad. Hopefully it sticks around for another few years.
You know, that's a good point. How many vendors did they have regularly ordering Lightbridge 2 when it was canceled, right? Like, currently, you've got how many vendors ordering, like, iFlight? Like you said, like, there's all these companies, iFlight and Flywoo and Beta, and like all these companies are regularly making orders. And, you know, I would imagine that does reflect somehow on their back end, at least go like, hey, maybe these are worth making because this number is over this number. So, yeah.
I put that in the more likely than not to keep making it column, you know? So, alrighty. Well, a very interesting time to be in the world of FPV. For the time being, though, system's still available through Runcam. Camera's still available through Caddx. If you're solidly invested in the DJI V2 system, you are still okay for the time being.
It sounds like there's even stock of like Nebula Pro Vista unit, like bundles that'll be around for a while. There's a lot of stock that I've seen around. So
yeah.